However, I'm thankful and lucky to have had the chance. All my life I've looked up to my dad and loved him very much. People have been speculating about Tiffany Trump and Melania's friendship for a long time. Were they ever really close? Or are they just acting nice for the cameras? Some said they were best friends when they weren't together. Others said they were really not getting along with each other. But now that she is 31, Tiffany is finally admitting the truth. She didn't hold back, let's just say. Everything we thought we knew about Melania was turned on its head by what she said. And as usual with the Trump family, there's more to it than meets the eye. What's going on between the First Lady and her stepdaughter? Hold on tight because this is a truth that no one saw coming. Let's start. Tiffany Trump lives a quiet life. Most people think of tall buildings in big cities when they hear the name Trump. High-stakes business deals and lifts covered in gold. Not so for one Trump child. In fact, it was so different that many people forget she's even related to the family. Tiffany Trump is Donald Trump's only child with actress Marla Maples. She grew up away from the cameras that were always rolling at Trump Tower. Tiffany was born in West Palm Beach, Florida, on October 13, 1993. She was born just 2 months before her parents got married. That little thing? The quiet event set the tone for a life that would be very different from the rest of the Trump children. During their youth, Donald Jr., Anai Sudfing and Eric lived in New York City and were taught how to become business moguls. Tiffany, on the other hand, was on a completely different path. Marla Maples did something brave after her parents split up in 1999. She packed up and left the world of Trump behind, moving to the California hills for a more relaxed life. What is her job? To give her daughter something that Trump's busy life didn't usually let her do. A pretty normal life. Also, guess what? It worked. At least as much as a Trump could get. Tiffany wasn't hanging out with Wall Street executives or being trained to run a real estate business. Instead, she was in Calabasas, jumping on backyard trampolines with her mom and watching Gilmore Girls. Her school? There is a private school called Viewpoint School that charges more than $30,000 a year in fees. So she was still very lucky, but not as lucky as her brothers back east, whose lives were dominated by high-octane media. If Marla had to stay single, she would have said that she didn't want anyone to get in the way of her friendship with Tiffany. That commitment was clear. People who knew them said they were more like best friends than mother and daughter. We talk late at night, cook together, and go on walks. It wasn't about fashion shows or news conferences. It was about real times of peace. But Tiffany wasn't as close to her dad as she was to her mom while they were together. Donald Trump did give her money. That's true. He made sure she had everything she needed, went to the best schools, and lived in a safe area. But Marla was the only one who could be present. During spring breaks, Tiffany did go to Mar-a-Lago, and Donald would sometimes fly out to see her at school events. But compared to the time he spent with his kids all the time in New York, Tiffany didn't spend much time with her dad. Marla once said it straight out, her dad is a good provider with education and other things, but at the time it was just me. That line says a lot. Things get even more interesting now. For years rumors have been going around about how Tiffany and her stepmother, Melania Trump, really feel about each other. Were they close, or were they just being nice for the cameras? Did Tiffany feel like she didn't belong in a family that was always very public and tightly controlled? Tiffany has become more open since she turned 31 years old, and what she's saying surprises everyone. What people thought they saw of her. It's not the whole story after all. It's even more surprising when you think about how Tiffany came to be in the first place. The huge scandal rocked the Trump family and filled the pages of papers across America before there was Tiffany Trump. Donald and Marla Maples' affair got a lot of attention. What took place? Ivana Trump was still married to Donald Trump when they met. She was his first wife. Marla Maples is a young blonde actress and model from Georgia. It is said that they met in 1985, but their relationship didn't become serious until a few years later. By 1989, rumors of an affair were going around in New York City and making the front page of tabloids. The conversation started. People saw Donald and Marla together more often in public, and the rumors quickly turned into a full-on media show. But the real explosion happened in late 1989 while the family was skiing in Aspen, Colorado. Several news sources say that Ivana and Marla met on the snowy hills. It is said that Ivana addressed Marla in front of shocked onlookers and the paparazzi. That one event became famous in the history of tabloids, and all of a sudden, everyone was interested in Donald's private life. In 1990, Trump's marriage was very close to ending. The news outlets had a great time writing about every move. She even told a newspaper that Donald was the best sex I've ever had, which became famous. Everywhere you looked, that line was all over the news and gossip pages. It kept coming up in their relationship for years and became a weird part of pop culture. Donald and Ivana's marriage ended for good in 1992. The split took a long time, had a lot of drama, and was very public. It is said that Ivana got a deal worth over $14 million, which included a mansion in Connecticut and an apartment in Trump Plaza. But even though things were still pretty messy, Donald didn't wait to make things official with Marla. Donald got married to Marla Maples in December 1993 at New York City's famous Plaza Hotel. It was a fancy and well-known event. The event was full of famous people, business leaders, and a lot of media attention. Their daughter Tiffany Trump was born that same year, but those who thought the story would end there were wrong. Things didn't look so great on the outside, but they were anything but on the inside. Trump and Marla's marriage quickly became tense. The spark that got a lot of attention didn't seem to lead to a long-term happy relationship. There were always reports of cheating, emotional distance and fights. By 1997, they were no longer together. In 1999, 2 years after they split up, they completed their divorce. It was said that Marla got a little more than $2 million in the deal, which is a lot less than what Ivana got years before. One of the main reasons, a strict deal before the wedding. Marla quietly moved out of the public eye after her divorce. She put all of her attention on raising Tiffany and becoming more spiritual and health conscious. She left the busy city of Manhattan and the media frenzy and went to California. Donald, on the other hand, was dating again. Marla made sure that Tiffany and Melania had a good bond, because Tiffany was still a child when Melania came along. A few times a year, she would bring Tiffany to New York and let her have dinner with her dad and Melania. She did this to make sure that the relationships grew naturally. But let's be honest, Tiffany didn't grow up with the Trump family for sure. She wasn't always around to learn about the Trump way of life, or at the same events or parties as him. Tiffany has talked about how her childhood was different from that of her brothers. In an interview with Oprah in 2013 she said, "I'm definitely different from all of them who grew up on the East Coast because I grew up on the West Coast, and that's probably not saying enough." Tiffany wasn't doing anything special while her brothers were getting ready for business life, by going to high-profile events and rising through the ranks in their dad's company. She was just living her life. There won't be any pressure from businesses, everyday news stories, or expectations to carry on Trump's work. Tiffany has always felt like a stranger in the Trump family because of this. One person who knows the family even said she didn't really get to grow up in the Trump home, and her half-siblings didn't have the same rights as her. And you can really see it. Ivanka was always around at the Trump organization and then in the White House. Tiffany, on the other hand, was just doing her own thing, like going to school and hanging out with friends, and staying out of the press. But now comes the fun part. Tiffany has always had good things to say about her dad, even though they live far apart and had different upbringings. He's been called the funniest and most loving dad by her. She never thought their relationship was in trouble, even though they didn't see each other as much. "We talk on the phone and try to see each other as often as we can." At one point she said, "I don't think that distance makes any relationship strains." That's a cool point of view, right? From the outside, it's easy to think that the distance has caused a split, but Tiffany doesn't seem to feel that way at all. Tiffany Trump's childhood was very different from that of her brothers. She did, however, grow up with her mother in peace, love and stability, away from the chaos of the Trump brand. That might have made her different from Trump, but it also gave her a sense of freedom that the other people might never fully understand. Melania Trump became a mom, and Donald Trump and Melania met. Their story began like a story where two people meet by chance. It was September 1998, and the Kit Kat Club in Manhattan was a popular spot. Melanie had only lived in the US for 2 years. She moved here from Slovenia to become a model. She was at a fancy event when Donald Trump noticed her. We all know that Donald has never been afraid to say what he wants. He asked for her phone number, but Melania, who is always calm and strong, didn't give it to him right away. She did the exact opposite, and asked for his number instead. That little power move, that was just a taste of the quiet confidence that would make her important to him for many years to come. After some time had passed, Melania found herself in a whole new setting. She was no longer just Donald's girlfriend. She was now part of a family that was already well established. His kids were grown up, living on their own, and had their own lives. They weren't little kids running around. This made things easier in some ways, since there weren't any messy custody fights or co-parenting problems. But it also meant she had to deal with a place where she wasn't expected to mother anyone but still had to fit in. And let's be honest, it's one thing to deal with a strong-willed businessman like Donald. It's quite another to step into a situation where his kids already had long-standing relationships, routines, and standards. That's a totally different problem. One friendship that stood out was the one between Melania Trump and Tiffany Trump. Trump Jr., Ivanka and Eric were all adults when Melania and Trump started dating. Tiffany, on the other hand, was only 6 years old. She wasn't around much either, because she lived with her mother Marla Maples, in California. That could have been enough to make them feel very emotionally distant from each other. Tiffany didn't want to feel like the other child, or like she wasn't part of the close-knit family though. The Trump family lives in New York. A sweet picture from 2000 shows how close they were when they were younger. At a tennis match, Melania was cuddling Tiffany, who was 7 years old, close while Donald watched the game. It's a very simple moment that says a lot. There was more to Melania than just being Donald's girlfriend. She tried to connect, show love, and be present, which is likely something Tiffany needed. Her popular and busy father wasn't always around, and they lived on the other side of the country. This could have made her feel like she didn't belong in her own family.